Piscopo, Denise Graves, Jerry Nachman, and Indianapolis citizen Ann Bateman.
Thank you very much. Oh, you're a great crowd, and listen, the first thing I want to do tonight, thank you for the barking, is wish a speedy recovery to Strom Thurmond. You know, we make a lot of jokes about Strom Thurmond. How old is he now? 96 years young. He's in the hospital down there. I'm sure he'll make it out, you know. Nothing can kill him. And they say he's an excellent patient, Strom is, because they say in one place he's comfortable, it's under a sheet. You know, because... Like, kid, Strom, get well, Strom. Now, speaking of the unbelievably old, Gloria Stewart is in the news. You know Gloria Stewart? She was nominated for an Oscar for her performance in Titanic. She was the older woman, the original passenger there in Titanic. She has put out her autobiography, and it contains some rather controversial stuff. She said that she never needed a man because she said, I had and have no guilt when it comes to pleasuring myself. In fact, she said her favorite part of Titanic is the climax, where everybody's looking for the little man in a boat. I tell you, Gloria, she is so old, she's got an A spot. That's how old she... And I don't think I need to know these things. I mean, between the image of Gloria Stewart masturbating and Bob Dolan Viagra, I don't care if I ever get laid again. Yeah. Now, in other news, yesterday the founder of Benihana, you go to Benihana, pled guilty to insider trading. He confessed after the SEC inspectors grilled him right at his table. Right at his table, the founder of Benihana. Please. And finally, a sort of a public service note for tonight. Officials in San Francisco are tracking an outbreak of syphilis that they have traced to the internet, to a chat room on America Online. Can you believe that? A guy apparently was using the chat room to meet people and then have sex with them. He never told them that he had syphilis, but in his defense, his chat name was Hurts to Pee. Okay, let's meet our panel. He is the former editor-in-chief of the New York Post, Jerry Nachman, right over here. Jerry.
Did you miss me?
Back, Jerry. How are you?
Very good.
Our citizen panelist tonight is a Waitron. I don't know what that is. From Indianapolis, Indiana, where she watches us on WRTV. Ann Bateman. Ann. Hi, Ann.
Hello.
How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you so much for dressing up. She and Placido Domingo will be doing Samson and Delilah at the LA Opera, oddly also in their pajamas. This September 8th through the 24th, her new CD is Voce da Donna, Denise Graves. Yeah. Hey, Denise, thank you for wearing clothes. He's a Saturday Night Live vet and the chairman of the Positive Impact Foundation. He's also the host of Positive Impact TV, Joe Piscopo. My Jersey guy. How are you, Joey? Good to see you. Okay. Joe, where are your pajamas when you're coming on TV? Okay, I want to start up tonight talking about the press a little bit. Now, we've talked a lot about George Bush, but let's talk about the press aspect of that, because George Bush may or may not have taken cocaine back when the Commodores were together, basically, is the issue. I think it's another instance of the press inflating a non-event to an event and then standing back as if they are some sort of dispassionate spectators. And then, of course, they'll do a story about how important the story they created is. I just think back to that New York Magazine cover last year with Clinton that said, impeach the press. I think the politicians are bad, the people are no prize, the press is at the bottom of the barrel. Jerry?
Nice to be back, Bill.
Don't you think the press is in bed with the politicians? Don't you think the whole reason that they're attacking George Bush, now this is just a hypothesis, but don't you think the reason maybe they're attacking George Bush is because now that Republicans have gained control of the House and Senate, maybe the corporations of the world have a vested interest in maintaining control of the political system? So if they beat up on George Bush, if we hear about cocaine for the next year, we won't vote for him. Maybe another Democrat will go into power and it'll be business as usual. You know, it'll be the taxpayer at a rate of $50,000 a year for every man, woman, and child.
Guys, it's so funny. I'm sorry, because Jerry wrote a great article the other day in the New York Times, which pretty much...
Which I may never get to talk about at the slumber party here tonight.
Could you... A great article, Jerry. But
thanks, Joe.
Don't they have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo? Don't you think they do?
What's funny about this whole thing
What's funny about it? I don't find anything funny about it. Does anybody find anything funny about paying $50,000 a year?
Where did we find her? But where was that?
You probably wouldn't know that.
Gee, Joe, and you thought you missed TV.
You're way up in another social strata, but the regular Joe American...
Point taken.
I think what they're doing, and I think what is funny, you have George Bush Sr., probably the most moral, straight-laced, good guy president that we've ever had. I mean, he really was. And then you had George W. at that point on the other side of the White House, you know, snorting and going, hey, where are the broads? You know? That's funny.
The problem is he didn't.
If he was so morally straight, why didn't he balance the budget? Why do we have the deficit of...
That's what we're talking about, young lady.
It's not. That's what I'm talking about, taxes.
But
that's what he's supposed to do.
Could maybe you start a pedicure for a minute and let me answer one thing?
The leader...
Well, I just want to say one thing.
He works for us, and we're all working for him.
Bill, I would love to hear about Jerry's article in the New York Times.
We don't need to do the article. The point I wanted to make was that as bad as the coverage of Clinton was, you would say in the press, there were people there who said, hey, he did this. There is no there, Ashpet. There is no there on the Bush stuff. There is no complainant. If next week someone suggests...
What does that have to do with running the government?
Please let someone else talk. Thank you.
If someone suggests next week that he's a pod person, are we going to do that story? The problem is that there's nobody who said, hey, I was at the Bula Bula Skull and Bones party in 1973 where the Commodores played and I saw W do an 8-ball. Yeah. That the press is covering that story as if there were such an accuser is, I think, a new low.
So you agree with me that the press is the bottom of the barrel?
Well, no, I don't. What I'm going to say is...
What is below the barrel?
Well, what I'm going to say is what Thomas Jefferson said, that given a choice between government without newspapers and newspapers without government, he would prefer the latter. And he's one of your favorite guys.
When our government, when our political system, when our country is going in the toilet through the deficit and through the unbalanced budget, why isn't Bush talking about that?
Honey,
I haven't heard him say 5 words.
I've got the press at the bottom now, but you're pushing it. Okay, I mean, first of all, your idea that somehow we keep the status quo by keeping the Democrats in office as opposed to the radical Republicans is as screwy as your outfit.
They're both. They're both corrupt. I'm not saying one over the other. I'm saying they're both corrupt. Why are we focusing on this as the most important issue in an election year when families out here, every person in this audience is paying $50,000 towards the debt?
You're right. People need food and clothing, some more than others.
They could buy food and clothing if they didn't have to give half their income to the government.
But that's not what Bill's talking about. Is the press? Why is the press nailing George W? Why are they?
I think the reason that is, excuse me, is because it's sensational. You know, it's an attention getter. It's something I think that the average Joe Schmo can relate to.
I find it fun. I find it very, very much amusing. I really do, especially when George Sr. was ambassador to China and George W.'s in Tiananmen Square going, "Where are the Chinese broads?" You know, I mean, he was just like, it's just funny. It's an amusing piece of
journalism. But again, to get back to my point about the press, you raised in your article the idea that back when FDR was president, someone was going to take a picture of him getting out of his wheelchair, and the other press guy said, "Kid, we don't do that here."
That's right.
We
But
don't do that
that's
here.
true.
Right.
But a few presidents later, the press said, "Wait a minute, he's got gun malls going in the White House, and he's stooping them, and we're not reporting it." So what's happening is we go flip and we go flip, and
Okay.
because
Enough about Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
I've got to take a commercial right now.